Have you ever wondered how climate change is altering the world we live in? It's like an invisible threat, creeping in, escalating, and transforming our lives in ways we don't always perceive. But it's there. It's in the increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather events. It's in the wildfires that rage with unprecedented ferocity, the heat waves that seem to last longer each year, the droughts that leave our lands parched and barren, and the hurricanes that devastate our coasts with shocking regularity. Climate change is not just about temperature graphs and melting ice caps. It's about people, about us. It's about how we live, where we live, and the choices we're forced to make as our environment changes. It's about the families migrating to areas afflicted by wildfires and heat waves, the communities moving away from flood-prone areas, and the cities and suburbs experiencing an influx of migrants, all in search of safety, opportunities, and a better life. Climate change isn't just a future problem, it's a present reality, reshaping our world in ways we might not even realize. Can you imagine moving to a place where the climate could put your life in danger? It sounds unthinkable. But a recent study by the University of Vermont paints a startling picture of just such a scenario. According to the study, more and more Americans are on the move, but not necessarily to safer pastures. Instead, they're heading to areas with a high risk of climate disasters, places plagued by wildfires, scorching heat waves, and persistent drought. Now, you might be wondering, why would anyone want to move to such hazardous locales? The answer lies not in the potential dangers, but in the perceived opportunities. Many of these climate migrants are drawn to the promise of job opportunities, the pull of family ties, and the allure of a pleasant climate and beautiful scenery. However, this trend poses significant challenges. For one, there's an increase in people flocking to hurricane-prone Florida and other areas under constant threat of destructive storms like Texas. These areas offer a warm climate and a perceived higher quality of life, but at what cost? The study suggests that many of these new residents may be blissfully unaware of the hazards in their new environment. They are moving away from flood-prone areas in the Great Plains, Midwest, Mississippi River, New York State, and West Virginia, but are ignoring the risks in their new homes. This is where city planners and policymakers come into play. They have a critical role in preventing new developments in these climate-vulnerable places. Their decisions today can protect the growing population from the increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather events. As we grapple with the reality of climate change, it's clear that it's not just altering our physical landscapes, it's also changing the patterns of human migration, drawing people towards the very places where the impacts of climate change are most acutely felt. Climate change is not just altering landscapes, but also the patterns of human migration. Have you considered the impact of climate change on industries we rely on? Let's take a look at the oil industry. Recently, Royal Dutch Shell lost a Dutch climate lawsuit, marking a significant shift in the landscape for oil companies. In another instance, Exxon clashed with shareholders over its energy transition strategy. This resulted in the loss of board members to an activist hedge fund, an event that could foreshadow similar outcomes in future board elections at other U.S. oil companies. These events highlight the increasing pressure on oil companies to transition to a low-carbon business model. Moody's rating agency has stated that the credit risk of major oil producers has increased due to these developments. The agency predicts that the increasing potential for more stringent investor climate and emissions-related investment thresholds will lead to higher capital costs and diminished access to capital for oil companies that do not meet investors' expectations. In essence, the battle against climate change is reshaping industries and challenging the status quo. The days of business as usual are over, and the transition to a more sustainable future is becoming an imperative, not an option. Is it still possible to deny the reality of climate change? You may recall Cardinal Michael Czerny, a senior Vatican official, echoing this very sentiment. He emphatically stated that the era of climate change denial and skepticism has ended. The evidence is irrefutable, manifested in the extreme weather events that have ravaged our planet, from hurricanes to floods. In the spotlight of the Vatican's recent film, The Letter, this issue is tackled head-on. The film underscores the urgency of addressing climate change, warning that the consequences of unchecked environmental degradation are steep. Loss of lives, displacement, and conflict, these are not dystopian projections but imminent realities if we continue on our current trajectory. The film also amplifies the voices of those on the front lines of this crisis: indigenous leaders, young people, and researchers. These are the voices that need to be heard, voices that bear the weight of our collective future. So, we return to the question, Is it still possible to deny the reality of climate change? The answer resounds clearly. The time of climate change denial is over. It's time to face the reality and act. So, what can we do about climate change? It's a question that looms large, but the answer lies in the small, everyday choices we make. You can start by reducing your energy use. Turn off the lights when you leave a room, opt for public transport or cycling over driving. Support renewable energy. If you can, install solar panels at home or choose a green energy provider. It's also essential to use your voice to advocate for climate-friendly policies. Call your representatives, participate in climate strikes, and vote for leaders who prioritize the environment. Remember, it's not about making perfect choices, it's about making better ones. The fight against climate change starts with each of us. Do your part today.